Okay, who's the Olam?
Good evening, I'm back on.
Chabad Press Switch is on twice. Oh, once. Who's the Olam?
Baderech, 1 second. Let's do just a post with the links to remind
Shazala, good to see you. Don't mean to chase anybody away. Other people want to watch, then gives it the hate. Noshin Sitkanis.
Okay, I'm going on mute. There are questions here. Rabbi, you can get started maybe. I'm going to start, keep an eye on the waiting room.
Okay, you do the waiting room.
And if you can.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So we'll do our usual 10 minutes pictures. Pictures. The first picture I have to share, like I said, there's no particular seder over here. This is just over the years what I accumulated on my computer. So it's in alphabetical order of what they were called at the time. This was called Chanina. This is outside the front of 770, and it's Yud Shvat Tovshin Nun. Okay, so this is Arboim Shana. It's a very special Yud Shvat. It was packed. That Shabbos Fabrengen. For one day, I'll share with you my Yuman of that Shabbos is Fabrengen. It was wild. It was the biggest pack this Fabrengen there was. And Yud Shvat was Monday. And this is Monday morning. There was spoke a Sticha Sunday night, 40 years. And Monday morning, there was a big mitzvah tank parade of 40 mitzvah tanks. And they were waiting to see if they was going to the mikveh and this and that. It didn't work out. And suddenly, as the mitzvah tanks were going, the Rebbe came out to go to the mikveh. And instead of going to the car, the Rebbe walked straight to the front. And he stood in the front. And there's a series of pictures, but for some reason I don't have them in my collection, but this was a unique one. The Rebbe stood there, and he was watching all the mitzvah tanks go. And then he went off to the mikveh. That's why you see there Benjamin Klein. He used to drive the Rebbe to the mikveh. And they were stood there and saw all the tanks going. Saw them off. So this is Yud Shvat Tovshin Nun. That night, the Rebbe spoke a Sicha Vahibar Arboim Shana. He started off, and then he gave out the Tanyas. The green, softback, large Tanyas. That was the first time. A year later, he gave you Teskisiv, the blue ones. So that was when he gave out Tanyas to everybody. Nearly, if I remember correctly, it was nearly 10,000 Tanyas. It's a lot of Tanyas. Yeah. This is Chanukah Toshin Memches. Toshin Memches was the year of Hakel. And in Toshin Mem Aleph, the year of Hakel, the Rebbe started speaking a Sticha every night of Sukkot. Toshin Memches, the year of Hakel, the Rebbe spoke a Sticha every night of Chanukah as well. And Pesach. Unfortunately, it didn't carry on the years after, but that year, the Rebbe spoke every day of Chanukah, the Rebbe spoke a Sicha, in addition to the rally that the Rebbe had with the children. Yeah, I think it was every day, except Motzei Shabbos, because the Shabbos Fabrengen went late. So here, the Rebbe is coming in. This could be the first day of Chanukah was after the oil. The second night, which is Thursday night, the Rebbe is coming in, and there's lots of children, and they said they looked in the Yaman that there was very shining and very relaxed in a very jolly mood. And the Rebbe gave to all the children tzedakah before going to his place to daven. This is an earlier picture of the Rebbe coming in. There's quite a big crowd, and this is Chanukah Toshin Memches. It's after the Danotzach of Beis Kislev. It was a very freiliche, special Chanukah, that Chanukah. Liv, you letting everybody in, yeah? Here is also dated Chanukah Toshin Memches. Here, this will show you, what is this over here? Why is this empty? So this, you do some detective work. First of all, Chanukah in the evening was empty because everyone went on Mivtzoyim. Okay? So you can see over here that there's, I don't know how many candles are there, but there's 2 or 3 candles. And I'm guessing that this is Motzei Shabbos. Why Motzei Shabbos? Because the Rebbe Stender from the Fabrengen, when they were davened here after Fabrengen. So this is the Rebbe's Fabrengen table, the old one. It's not there anymore today. That was changed in Toshin and Aleph or Toshin Nun. And the Rebbe would sit here, and right by his place was a Stender, and that's where the Rebbe would daven. So it seems like it was left there. So this must be Motzei Shabbos, because by Sunday it wouldn't have been there anymore. They would have put it away already. So let me see if it makes sense, because Shabbos was the 4th day of Hanukkah. So Motzei Shabbos would be the 5th. That's not 5 candles, is it? So then maybe it's not Motzei Shabbos. I don't know. But in any case, this is what we spoke a while ago about. We had a video I showed you a few weeks ago of the Rebbe davening after Fabrengen. This was the stender with which the Rebbe davened. Okay? So the Rebbe had gone home already. The Rebbe's chair is covered in plastic. The cover from the stender has been taken off. Another thing in this picture, which you're not used to, let's make this, minimize this. Another thing which you won't see anymore today are, there used to be chandeliers in 770. The original 770, when it was built, went up to here. And somebody donated chandeliers. This is what the chandeliers looked like. When they renovated 770, the ceiling of 770 in Toshin Nun Hey, in that first year after Gimel Tammuz, so these chandeliers were taken away. I don't know where they are. But this is something which most people don't even remember that there was. And the old speaker system, the microphones which were there for the Rebbe's Fabrengens. So these were the chandeliers that were there in 770. Okay. So that's Chanukah Tavshin Mem Ches, A, B, C, D, 4 pictures. Here is an interesting one as well. I mean, they're all interesting. Chanukah Tavshin Lamed Zayin. There was a rally. Tavshin Lamed Zayin. I don't remember which day, which candle it was. And the Rebbe then said he's going to give every child 2 dimes. One is going to be for them to give to tzedakah, and one is to spend as you want as Chanukah geld. And instead of giving it to the madrichim, he is giving it out to every child individually. So the Rebbe stood.
Where's the Rebbe standing?
I'm about to say. So this is standing in the back of 770. The doors going out. With today, you would know the car going up. Today, there's a ramp. Then there was proper steps. And over here was a sink. You can see the towel rail with the the lock on the towel rail, so no one can steal the towels. Remember, they were sewn together, so it goes in a row. And the Rebbe stood by that door, so people were able to. So Bacham were there, and someone standing there watching. And this is label Groner. This Chanukah Tavshin Lamed Zayin. The Rebbe gave every child 2 dimes, one for tzedakah and one for Chanukah geld. And in the end, they were gave to Rebbe Chadakov and to Miriam Klein, and then they were gave to the photographer. And then they were called over. His name was Velvel Schildkraut. Velvel Schildkraut was a photographer. He had one of his workers taking the pictures. And the Rebbe gave him, he says, you're in charge of the workers. So the Rebbe gave him 2 dimes as well. So the Rebbe had this box, maybe a shoe box, whatever it was, with all the dimes. And the Rebbe gave everybody, this is some mothers coming with their children. And here's the Rebbe's siddur with whatever it was in the back. And this is from that same occasion, or not, because it's not from the same occasion. Here, Label Groner is wearing still a suit. This is already Toshin Lamed Ches. Lamed Ches, the mosquitoes all changed. He changed it. They wore kapotas from then onwards, because they hadn't taken it off. They were with the Rebbe the whole time. Let's make this bigger. Toshin Lamed Ches is a fascinating thing. The Rebbe was just recovering. We just had the Shchedish Kislev this week, all right? The Rebbe went home for the first time. He didn't go home every night after that. When the Rebbe went home then for a Shchedish Kislev, it was the doctor's hope that he'll go home and he'll stay there till Pesach. That was their plan, to recuperate. They released him from the intensive care unit, so the Rebbe went home. But they said that, and you'll stay till Pesach at least to recover. Which, of course, the Rebbe had no plans on doing that. And they had an argument, discussed it with the Rebbe. They weren't happy. Binyamin Klein, this is just as an aside, Binyamin Klein in the car tried one last attempt. And he says, I can't remember what he said, but basically the Rebbe said to him, and I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. You make sure you're here. But that Chanukah, so how long is Chanukah after Shchedish Kislev? Yutas Kislev, the Rebbe came down for the first time to Fabrengen. The next time the Rebbe came downstairs was Chanukah. And he davened Mincha. And then that was Chof Ches or Chavtes Kislev. The Rebbe went to the oil for the first time. And when the Rebbe came back from the oil the first time, After Mincha, the Rebbe, after Mariv, the Rebbe went at 1:10, and he came back at 4:30. He was there for 2.5 hours. To the mikveh, Dr. Resnick went with him. To the oil, Dr. Resnick and Dr. Lev went with the Rebbe. They didn't want to leave him alone. They went for 2.5 hours to the oil. He came back with Mincha, and after Mincha, the Rebbe told them that they lit Menorah and Haneres Halolo, and then they started singing Hakofes Niggin, and the Rebbe, or Napoleon's March, I don't remember, and the Rebbe signaled everybody in the back, on the bleachers, and everyone, even the younger light, older Chassidim in the benches, everybody should go into the middle and dance, and there was like Hakofes, and the Rebbe signaled everyone should go in circles, and everybody was dancing in circles, and the Rebbe was clapping and everything, and then the Rebbe said that he's going to give out Chanukah Geld. He told the mosquitoes that nobody should disturb him. It should be on Hagbolas. And this is just 2 months after this massive heart attack, 3 weeks after the Rebbe went home. The Rebbe stood there, and the Rebbe gave out, it's a cigar box, not a shoe box. And the Rebbe gave all the children, I think the adults as well, he gave Chanukah Geld to everybody. It was one of the special times of that particular year. And then a few days later was the Suda Seidah, the Chanukah Fabringen, that famous Suda Seidah that the Rebbe made then. So this is Chanukah Lamed Ches. So 2 years on their own. This is in the same place. You see the window. So this is the same place. The bookshelves were there. They were stood there in the back, and he gave out the Chanukah Geld. Levi, you'll tell me when the. You tell me when Rabbi Gerari is here. We know almost.
Rabbi Gerari is on already. Maybe it's a good idea to hold it. Oh, good pictures. Let's hold it here, and then Bez Hashem will continue from here next week. Thank you very much, Rabbi Kievman. Let's move on to Rabbi Gerari.
Everybody should be gebenched. I want to add just 2 things that might be of interest. One is that there was a time that the Rebbe went home, and it was Hanukkah. This is not that year, but and the Rebbe asked, I guess, Chesed, is there a dreidel? And he didn't have a dreidel. So the Rebbe took a quarter and he spinned it. This is what he told me. So it's so interesting. And also I remember from going back many, many years that when the Rebbe would come sometimes to his room, and on the way there were children playing dreidel in the hall there, the Rebbe would stop and give them some coins and also make with the dreidel. So the Rebbe was like, every minute Yisrael was by the Rebbe very, very tired. Incidentally, if this is not known, this is very important for everyone who's listening, that the Rebbe once said on Yechidus to Reb Zalman Posner Olav HaShalom of what is so special about a minhag. And it's a mitzvah to fasten this for those who never heard this before. And the Rebbe gave a mashal of there are 3 types of avodim. There is an eved that whatever he's told, he does. This is the Reises. When we have something in the Torah, it says a mitzvah, we do it. Then there is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, brings out a deeper hiskashrus. That even though, like a Adon, who doesn't have to spell everything out, even if he makes just a hint, if he's hinting, that is good enough. That's what Chazal say on every Drabanan, lekemide deloy remize b'daraisa. So the Rebbe's mashal was that following the Drabanan is a deeper loyalty to the Adon, that he just makes a wink, and that's good enough. But a minig Yisrael, the Rebbe said, and this is so important to hear, a minig Yisrael brings out the greatness of the skashres of a Yid to the Eibishter. He was not told. He wasn't even hinted. But he on his own, he has an intuition what can bring a tainug to the Adain. That's a minik. Does everybody hear this? This is so important. Why is a minik so special? Because it brings out dafke, because it's not said and it's not hinted. I don't need it to be. I have a feeling this would bring tainuk. So that is the Pashut, beautiful, the Negei and Avodas Hashem, how we have to cherish a minig Yisrael. And we saw this by the Rebbe so many times. For those of us who remember, I was there when the Rebbe went to Tashlich on Rosh Hashanah and was pouring cats and dogs rain. And the Rebbe went to the botanical garden, and the gates were closed because it's raining. It wasn't stam raining. And the Rebbe didn't stop. And every second by the Rebbe Rosh Hashanah is mamish, you can't imagine. The Rebbe Pashut climbed up this gate to go to Tashlich. Everybody witnessed this. A lot of people also followed suit, and later by the Koshel Bracha, the Rebbe gave only to those who went to Tashlich on the rain, and he tested some people's hats if they really went. But the point is, we saw by the Rebbe, it's just a minig Yisrael. A minig Yisrael, Mesiras Nefesh. No gates, fences. He jumped, he climbed up the whole gate. L'katchila Rebbe, we saw the Rebbe living through this L'katchila Rebbe. So that's something interesting that I wanted to bring out the minhag. Also, I want to bring some memories. If we're talking about Hanukkah, the whole idea of Hanukkah Geld, how this developed, was first, there was a time that the Rebbe gave, he went into the Zal, and this was, the Anhola was there, and the Rebbe gave Hanukkah Geld to the Bachrim who kept Seder. And the Anhola had to okay, or if these Bachrim are keeping Seder. And it was a special, it was Moiradika Kirov that the Rebbe gave to the Tamimim Hanukkah Geld. Now later on it became already a whole, gave to everyone, and but it's interesting that L'katchile, it was only for the Tamimim, and only Dafka for those who kept Seder and Taka, whatever, learned, and those were able to be Zeicher. Okay, that's just some of the memories I have to share with you all. And now we're going to talk today about the third Ikar of the Yud Gimel Ikrim. One of the Yesodis that the Rambam says is fundamental in the whole religion. As ein loy guf, ve'ein loy demus haguf. That when we talk about the Eibishter doesn't have any kind of a body and any kind of a form of a body. And to believe that is Yesodei HaTorah, this is fundamental. And if Chas v'Sholem, according to the Rambam, because we're going now according to the Rambam, if a person, Chas v'Sholem, does imagine that the Eibishter has a guf, he's a kaifer, playing with a very serious issue. The truth of the matter is, it's kedai to know that the Ramban disagrees, the Raiva disagrees, and we're not going to go into it now, but the Rambam holds, and we've paskin like the Rambam, that ein loy guf, ein loy demus haguf, and if you don't believe in that, you're missing a fundamental principle in Yiddishkeit. But what we need to understand is that the Torah's emes does use terminology in the Torah that seems chas v'shalom as if the Eibishter does have a guf. It says, Yada chazaka, the zroya netuya, Eine Hashem el tzadikim, v'ovnav el shavasam. There's constantly references in the Torah where the Torah talks about a physical, seems like a physical guf. The Eibishter has an ear and he has an eye, chas v'shalom. So how do we understand that the Torah says that as if there is a guf, chas v'shalom, and yet it is so out of the question that it's your koifer if you think that he has a guf. Also, it's very important, and we're going to go into it soon. What is the chiddush that ein loy guf, but not only ein loy guf, ve'ein loy demus haguf? What's the difference if he doesn't have a guf and if he has a demus haguf? So what are we really excluding over here? So I'd like to begin with something very, very important to know. Number one, in Kabbalah teaches us that there is a whole system how Hashem answers us, how he conducts himself with us and with the world. There's a system. And the system is called, there is a Seder Hishtalshalos. There's a system of many, many levels of world, spiritual levels. And there is higher, and then it goes down lower and lower and lower. And it talks in great detail about the system. And the Arizal, who talks so much about the system of the spiritual worlds, says that it's a mitzvah gedola. There's very strong words. It's a part of the mitzvah of Yediyas Hashem to know the order. Why is it? What do I need to know about the order? And if there's no order, if there is an order, I have to know, every Yid has to know, he's talking, davening to the Eibishter himself. And how Hashem conducts the world, l'may nafka. I leave it to him. He knows what he's doing. I'm sure everything is perfect. Yet, no. The Arizal says it's a tremendous mitzvah. It's a part of mitzvahs Yediyas Hashem that we mentioned a few weeks ago, that the Rambam starts the whole Yesoidis Leida Ulahamen. But the Arizal says a part of Leidas Hashem is you need to know the system of the spiritual order. So the question is, why is it so important? And maybe the question is even deeper. Why is there an order? The Eibishter has no limit. He has no system. He's not limited to any system. The holiest system is still a limit, and Hashem is beyond any system. But he did make a system. There is higher and there is lower, and in order to get to the lower, it has to go through gradually from one system to another system. Why did Hashem even make the system? So it says in Chassidus that this is all all for us. Hashem doesn't need a system, and he doesn't need no system. But to Hashem, it is so important for a Yid to appreciate Hashem's greatness. That's a part of Avodas Hashem, to have an appreciation to Hashem's greatness. If there wouldn't be a system of higher and lower, and in higher alone is higher and higher and higher, then we would not have any appreciation of the greatness of Hashem. We would only say, oh, he's greater than me. That's saying a lot. You imagine you have a big gun like the Ragachover. Ragachover was light miles greater than anyone we could understand we have today. There's no one like him. But if we didn't have other levels of Gaonim, and it would only be the Ragachover and me. So what would I say? Oh, the Ragachover, he's mamish greater than me. We understand that that's not saying anything. In order to know that there is levels and higher levels and higher levels and higher levels, then, although I never get to the final level, but I have a whole different appreciation of the Eibishter. So the whole system of there are higher worlds and spiritual worlds, and there are spheres that we're soon going to talk about. All this is nothing that Hashem needed. He doesn't need anything. It's all for us. For Yidden, to Hashem, so to speak, locked himself up in a system. So the system is not a make-believe. There is a system. But the system is not because he needed that system. It's all, there is a system, so we are so important to Hashem that we should have an appreciation in his greatness. And as I mentioned, I believe a few shiurim ago, that the Zohar HaKadosh says that the reason the Eibishter created the world is begin, these are the words in quote in the Zohar, begin in order the Yishte Moiden Lei, that we should have an understanding in him. This is, if we think about this for a moment, the whole creation of the world is really that there should be eventually Yidden. And there should be Yidden who will serve Hashem and come to an understanding of, and that's what the whole kavanah of B'riyas Ha'olam. So this is very telling that it's so important for a Yid to study and learn the greatness of Hashem, that according to the Zohar, that's the whole reason we're here. So we can't say, first I'm going to learn Gemara, and then I'm going to learn Poskim, and when I have some extra time. The question is not what you think you want to do. You got to know, what does Hashem want you to do? That's Bechlal, the most important thing is to know, what does Hashem want? Hashem stated that the whole purpose, according to the Zohar, why he created the world, and why he created Yidden, and why he gave Matan Torah, what is that supposed to lead to? That Yidden on this earth will have a profound understanding of his existence. So it behooves us every day to take off time and learn Chassidus, because Chassidus, that is what Chassidus talks about, That is the topic. Hashem is the whole topic of Chassidus. There are no svarim that specializes in this inyan of the Eibishter as in Chassidus, and in particular Chassidus Chabad, that brings it down dafke in words, the way to understand it with our own human mind. So this is Bechlal, something very important to discuss, that Seder Shtalshalus. I believe that this was yesterday's share, or 2 days ago, share on Tanya that we learned with Alter Rebbe Nigeres HaKodesh brings this Eitz Chaim, and he says it's a mitzvah, Rama, Venisa, that the words of how important a person has to learn the Seder Shtalshalus. And why? As I mentioned before, for us to have a greater appreciation of Hashem's greatness. So now, the first introduction to the whole Kabbalah really begins with the Zohar. And in the Zohar, and some people say this particular Zohar, they say this every Friday Mincha, before Shabbos, before Ashrei. We say, some customs have this, that we say, Hoidul Hashem Ki Tov, a kapitel that the Baal Shem Tov introduced. This is a kapitel of Tilim that brings the 4 different thanks to Hashem that we learn out, that you're supposed to bench goimel if you come from a desert, if you come from when on sea, and you come out of a jail, if you come out of a sickness. There are 4 different possibilities where you have to say a special thanks to Hashem. Where is the makar? The makar is in this kapitel. It says 4 times praising Hashem for his kindness, which is going on the 4 different things that a person could go through that he has to thank Hashem. So the Baal Shem Tov introduced that every Yid throughout the week, we also go through trials and tribulations, and if we come Friday, the end of the week, we have to thank Hashem for these 4 things, and that is why it's a minhag from the Baal Shem Tov he introduced to say this kapitel before Mincha, Erev Shabbos. Then, in many Sidurim, there is a special passage that, believe it or not, it's a praise to Hashem that Eliyahu HaNavi says to Hashem. And it begins, Pasach Eliyahu. Those of us who are familiar, it's all in Aramaic. The whole Zohar is in Aramaic. And this is all mysticism. The whole Pasach Eliyahu talks about the spiritual worlds and the system. And this is something that is said every Mincha, Erev Shabbos, after this kapitel, Hoidul Hashem Ki Tov Kli Olam Chazda. Eliyahu HaNavi begins by saying to the Eibishter, this is like his song to Hashem. Incidentally, a lot of tzaddikim said Pasach Eliyahu right before they left this world. This was like the holiest praise that they said right before they left Olam Hazeh. What does he say there? He starts off saying, Ant hu chad, you, God, you are the real one. And you do not, you're not included. You're above. anything that I'm going to say now, you have no form. You are complete, totally simplistic. You have no physical form, for sure not, but no spiritual form. Which incidentally, if we would have anything to say and call Hashem, it would be a contradiction to what Hashem is. Because whatever we'll say is a limit. You're defining him by something. You'll say he's infinite. You'll say he's eternal. You'll say whatever you're going to say, you're saying something specific. And God he's beyond anything you could say. That is one of the reasons we say that Hashem has no name. Because a name would be defining him. You can't define Hashem. Of course, you can't even call him the creator. I think we talked about this, that for Hashem to be our creator, it would be like an insult. That's what Hashem is, a creator. To him, it's nothing to create everything. So whatever Eliyahu Navi is going to continue, he makes the introduction. You are Ad Tu Chad. You are the real one, unique, that you are above anything that I'm going to say now. Then he says, Antu, you are the Eibishter de Apikas, that you took, so to speak, out of yourself. You revealed yourself into 10 spheres. The 10 spheres, we call them 10 faculties. Let's understand this, because it says in so many places that God created us in his image. It says so clearly in the Torah. Nasa Adam B'tzalmeinu Kidmuseinu. So here's right away a contradiction. How could we say that God made man in his image when we just now said that Hashem has no image? So what's going on? So one of the answers to this question is, we mean the image of the system that Hashem created in the spiritual worlds. God created a system Lamaila. And a human being is a replica. His body, why do we have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 5 fingers, and 2 hands? Every little part of the human body is a replica, a copy of the spiritual order. Speaking a little more than that, the relationship between our neshama and our body has also an order. There is the neshama itself that is simplistic. You can't define it by anything. And then the soul has an element that expresses itself through 10 different ways. And that is the 3 levels of intellect, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, which is Chabad, Chachma, Bina, Das. And then the human being has 7 different emotions. Altogether, that's 10. Why does a human being have exactly 10 faculties? Because he is a replica. His 10 faculties of his neshama are a replica of the 10 faculties above. And we're going to call it today, we'll call them spheres. Spheres has many meanings, but one of the meanings is lashon sapir, shiny, bright. There are 10 godly faculties, and Hashem conducts the world through those 10 faculties. Why is this so important to know? And why do we need to know this? If it has 10, he has 5, who cares? Because without understanding that Hashem has a system of 10 faculties, there would be some major questions in our mind. One of the questions is, we are finites, and everything that we live a finite life. And we are turning to God, where we all understand that God has nothing in common with any kind of anything. He's simplistic, he has no form. So how in the world did God create a finite world that everything is different than the other thing? There's no two things that are alike. There's all kinds of creations and all kinds of systems. How did that come from a one God, who everything is one, and from a one became the opposite of one? Everything about all the worlds is that there's no two things that are alike. How did that happen? On one hand, it has to happen only from Hashem, and we believe Echad as one of the things that we mentioned according to the Rambam. The Rambam says mitzvah achdus is to believe that God is a complete kind of a one, not made up of many different things. He's completely a one that has no form whatsoever. So here we are obligated to believe that he's the complete one. And here he created everything that is just the opposite of one. So how did this happen? How did this happen from a one God? How did he do that? Logically, of course, God could do anything, but if we are to understand, we are told that there's a mitzvah to understand. Logically, it doesn't make sense. How could a pure one, create something with just the opposite of one? So the answer is that Hashem created a system of 10 different faculties. Let's give this analogy, which is brought down from the Pardes Ramoshe Cardova, who was one of the greatest Kabbalists, explains, if we could understand this, like, let's take the light, or light from a room, or light from the sun, and a light that has different glasses. Let's say you have different windows. You have a blue window and a red window and a green window. The light has no color, but the light through a red glass will look red to you because it's coming through a red glass. And so goes with the green glass, and so goes with the blue glass. In other words, the light is the same light, but when it comes through a different kind of a glass, you will receive it as blue or green. The same way goes with the faculties of Hashem. He created the faculties, and everything that Hashem does, he conducts himself through shining through those faculties. The faculties themselves also come only from one God. So here goes back the question. If the faculties come from Hashem, so why isn't the same question? Just like how does a one God, how does it become 10? So here again, we have to go back to another aspect in Kabbalah, that Hashem, for Hashem to have many is really not a contradiction to be one. Why? L'chiyayre, it is a contradiction, and how could we say there's many and many more than 10? Because the higher you go, you learn in Kabbalah that in the world of Atzilus, there are 10. If you go beyond all the worlds, there are Sephiros ad ein kates. There are infinite amount of faculties. So how did that happen? The higher you go, there are more and more faculties. When you're speaking about a one God, and here you said there are many, 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 many different kinds of levels and different kinds of worlds. The Lashon in Kabbalah, Oilamais ain't safe. There are infinite amount of levels. So how does that answer? So how could that be? The answer is that for Hashem, it's not any contradiction to be one and at the same time to be infinite amount of different things. How could we understand that? Because from Hashem's point of view, all of these things is Him. It's not one different than the other. To Him, He Himself is in each and every different sphere. It's the same Him. He could be this and He could be that. There's nothing that He cannot be. So as far as Hashem is concerned, the differences are only to the receiver's end. But as far as Hashem is concerned, He is the same Hashem that could be everything. There's a famous sefer that I think we mentioned, a sefer in Kabbalah, earlier, much earlier than the Arizal, and there's a sefer called Avodas HaKodesh. And Avodas HaKodesh says just one sentence, but it's like an atomic bomb. The Avodas HaKodesh says, Ein Sof, the infinite Hashem, is Shleimusa Dekula. He's the complete, He has every mile, every kind of advantage that it could be. And he continues, Shem sheyesh lo koyach bebilti bal gvul, kach yesh lo koyach begvul. When is finite a contradiction to infinite? If it's two separate things. But if you understand that it's this same Hashem, the same Hashem, His infinity is so strong that finite is a part of His infinity, that He could be a finite too. So the finite is not really finite. The finite is an expression of His infinity. So when we talk about the spheres ad ein kates, or even when we speak about the Esses spheres as far as Hashem is concerned, or if you would have a discussion with the Esses spheres d'Atzilus and take them on a side and say to them, excuse me, sir, how did this happen? You are a gvul, Chachma is not Bina, and Bina is not Das. You know what the answer will be? You are out to lunch. This is the same Eibishter who could be Chachma and Bina, and it's all the one Eibishter. But to you, it's going to appear that Chachma is different than Bina, and Bina is different than Das, etc., etc. So B'meile, we have to understand that as far as Hashem is concerned, it's always He. It's still He. And He could be everything at the same time. But how we are supposed to receive everything that we receive, the system goes through the 10 spheres, where the spheres we get either from the blue glass or the green glass. So to us, the light is a different glass, different light. And that is how Hashem conducts himself with this world. But this also answers another very important question. We know that the Eibishter, it's a pasuk, that the Eibishter never changes. As it says, Ani Hashem lo shanisi. I never change. You open up the Chumash and you say, wait a minute, it says so many, it seems like it's a contradiction. Here it says God got happy. Here it says God was upset. Here it says you brought him delight. It says in the Shema, which we say every day, at least twice or 3 times a day, V'chora af Hashem bochem, and Hashem is going to get angry. I thought God never changes. So how do we, what's going on? What are we supposed to believe? Does it say, it says he gets angry, it says that he got upset. So the answer is again, Hashem never changes. But how he's going to conduct himself to us is through different glasses. If we do whatever Hashem wants us to do, then he'll conduct him, he'll shine through the glass that is kindness. If chas v'shalom, we act in a certain way that is not preferable, then the conduct that's shining will shine through the black glass. That means that the light doesn't change, but how we are going to receive it is going to be through that type of sephira. So I'm saying b'kitzur some very important points that if we didn't have the idea of that we didn't learn anything in Kabbalah, that the Eibishter made us spheres, there would be so many questions in Emunas Hashem. How do you put this two together? The truth is that the Rambam himself is bothered by this question. He asks, what does it mean, Yada Chazaka and Einei Hashem and all these things? And the Rambam explains that the Eibishter is talking in our language. But it doesn't really answer. But so is there some truth in it? Or this is just a way for us to... So according to Kabbalah, it's emes. There is a difference in how we are going to receive our relationship with Hashem is going to be based on our conduct. And that's the kind of light that we are going to receive through the different spheres that Hashem set up. There's something a little deeper, and I don't know how much time we have. Could somebody tell me what time it is? 10 more minutes?
3 more minutes. We're
going to have to continue because there's some very strong things that are not yet fully answered. But I do want to say, on one hand, a Yid is supposed to believe b'emunah shleima, that everything that we do matters to Hashem himself. I have to share this with you, that this is not so well accepted in all circles of the Frumme Yidden. There are, unfortunately, or whatever, many who think that really to Hashem there's no difference. You could spit nickels, you could jump in the lake, but it's for you. It's going to matter to you. So if chas v'sholem we would think like that, then it's a whole thing is a fake. You really, Hashem doesn't need, you don't have to daven, you don't have to do nothing, but it's good for you. You're going to get a reward or you're going to get a punishment. It's good for you. Chas v'sholem, this is contrary to the whole emunah. We talk only to Hashem, and we believe that every little move that a Yid does is goyrem, the Eibishter himself, Atzmus Ein Sof, gets a tainuk. Like it says in the Chumash, Nachas Ruach Lefonai she'amarti v'nasa retzoni. So the question is, but Eibishter is never affected. He's infinitely greater than anything. How could he be affected? How could I matter to him? We can't even imagine how insignificant we really are to him. So do I matter or I don't matter? So the answer, in short, I'm going to talk about this in Mitzvah Hashem next week. The answer is you really shouldn't have mattered. Because in God's presence, we're less than nothing. You're totally insignificant. However, he chose, the Eibishter chose that although we shouldn't matter, he chose that we do matter. And how much do we matter to no end? Because it's he who is so infinite, shows that whatever Yid does matters beyond. And this is mamish negeya, and we're going to have to talk about this next week. But if you have questions about this, you could save it and maybe ask about it next week. But I'm giving you the final Seif pasuk. Then in Chassidus it says that really a Yid has to know that everything he does reminds me this week, Hashgacha Padius is Pashas Vayetze. And in Vayetze, in the middle of the dream of Yankov, he sees Vehine Hashem Nitzav Alav. Nitzav Alav, there's two different pshatim, Nitzav Alav, but one of the pshatim is the Eibishter is standing on Yaakov. What's this message? When somebody's standing on, you're laying on the, let's say on the ground, and somebody's standing on you. I hope he's not overweight or something. But if somebody's standing on you, you know what? Every move that you make, the guy who's lying is going to affect the guy who's standing on you. So the Rebbe explains how profound this pasuk, what the pasuk is saying here. Yaakov is the father of all Bnei Yisrael. And the Eibishter is revealing to him that I am standing on you. Every move that you make is kvayochel noigeya to me. Why? It wouldn't make any sense. But that's what Hashem did. Whoops.
I think we lost the rabbi. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And Be'ezrat Hashem, next week we'll continue in Yerushalayim and HaKadosh, otherwise right here.